It's alright, I'm a counsellor, and there are various important caveats and counter-arguments we're going to discuss. Do not take this as cut and dry as it sounds. Nonetheless, kids' movies are allowed to be scary and dark, although with that one I'm entirely convinced most people don't know what dark even means in relation to film. There's a good reason so many kids' films do tend to have scary or weird, creepy, dark, bizarre bits in them. A good reason. I was terrified by the Chamber of Secrets as a kid, not even the blood or the basilisk or anything, just that music. My brother was scared of Wallace and Gromit. Everyone, without question, was haunted by Courage the Cowardly Dog. My god. Look, hopefully pretending to be loud and opinionated has now hooked you into this video, so let's throw in my calm introduction and then discuss this sensibly. If I've learned anything about how YouTube works, and probably not much based on recent views, it's that the channels seem to pull in a lot of views by reviewing kids' films with creepy bits in, and titling the video something like, "How is this a kids' movie? How was this allowed on TV?" There's something about the idea of children's movies being creepy or dark or scary beneath the surface that's fascinating to us. I might touch on why that is at the end of the video, but right now, my main argument is to say, of course it was allowed on TV, of course it's allowed for children, Nightmare Before Christmas, Monster House, that bit in Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka that scares everyone. I don't want anyone to get offended by me calling them kids' movies, by the way, because I'm placing family movies under this umbrella too, of films that are targeted to at least partly appeal to children. They can be very scary to a child, and that can be good, because scary as it might be, TV and film are generally pretty safe. They're just on the screen, you can pause them, turn them off, hide behind the sofa, they come to an end, and if it's a good film, probably end with a nice conclusion and closure on a lot of the said scary things. It's a safe environment to gently introduce children to stressful experiences, anxiety-inducing ones, principally to introduce them to fear. They are all, of course, inevitable things we experience in life. We do our best to protect our children, but there's still a whole world out there they are going to have to come to terms with someday. And life is wonderful, but it can also be full of fear, and we have to learn as best as we can now to manage that feeling. The sensations of fear, the experience. If we can be introduced to that experience in small, safe doses first, that then gradually build up a little bit as we age, then we will be better prepared to manage experiences of fear and anxiety in our everyday lives. There is some research to suggest scary films can strengthen your tolerance to anxiety and stress. Although, as far as I understand, the research isn't entirely conclusive, part of which is because of the entire counter-argument to all of this. The very real facts that scary films can be legitimately traumatizing, and I don't think it should be a surprise really to anyone. I'm sure there's some of you watching this who are very aware what it's like for kids to watch full-blown 18 plus horror films or whatever, and then still be having it kind of affect them 20 years on. There is a very good reason films are given different ratings. One of my best friends was allowed to watch whatever the hell when he was young, and I can remember seeing at sleepovers how intensely all of it messed with his dreams. I know that's just an anecdote based on my childhood there, but it felt relevant. My parents were very keen to prevent me watching horrors, which I was often annoyed about because the taboo can be exciting for a child and the chance to try and show your friends how fearless you are, but looking back I think I'm probably grateful. Horror films can be genuinely traumatizing. However, small amounts of fear in a safe environment, where it feels scary but you come out of that experience knowing it's been okay, it's over, you got through it fine. It teaches you that you can manage the fear without it overwhelming you. Repeated experiences like that can give you more confidence and resilience to manage those kind of emotions. I guess that's something that's quite cool about the idea of Halloween, really. It's a thing primarily meant for kids. It's one day a year when things can be a little bit scary, and they know when that day is going to be, they can be prepared for it, they know when it's over. You can start pulling in all of the spooky monster stuff that they're probably quite excited for, and have it be something they can find fun and interesting and be curious about. Not that it's all about the experience of fear, not in a concrete concrete sense anyway, there's also a deeper layer to this. Sometimes I think it's also about the concepts and ideas you get to explore through all the dark or creepy or scary stuff, so let's discuss that next. So it's good to remember that well before a child might watch any film with scary bits in, or may go out for Halloween or whatever stuff, before all of that, they are already scared by things. They are already very familiar with what fear is, sometimes having all sorts of fears born out of unconscious feelings they don't even know how to voice. You know, I don't think I'm blowing anyone's mind here to say sometimes our nightmares are symbolic for very real fears we have in waking life. You know, sometimes it can be quite complex to understand. Sometimes it can be like dreams about big, scary, angry monsters. You know, not to say this is all it could mean, but it could be linked to the experience of being yelled at by an adult or something, seeing someone turning into this monstrous figure. That experience is something you then have symbolically in your dreams. It's incredibly difficult for a child to comprehend the idea of things being both good and bad at the same time, parents being good and bad, caring and angry. Children can almost see them as two entirely different beings, and films with apparently nice characters turning out to be villains or having this monstrous side bursting out of them can speak to that experience. How confusing that is for a child. And you could argue fairly, I think, that films where these apparently nice people turn out to be villains, that could create that fear, that could make it harder for children to trust anyone maybe, because they think, what if everyone's like in this film? I suppose so, but equally, if it's having that big an effect on them, it's probably something they are already having worries about. Perhaps so unconscious they can barely even manage to recognise it. And then they see that idea play out in a story and it just speaks to them on such a deep level. I don't think it necessarily exacerbates the worry so much as gives them a way to express it, to voice it, to give them this medium to kind of explore those worries and start to wrap their head around them. In that way, stories can be a little bit like a sandbox for you to play out all of these fears, hopes, feelings, both good and bad, that you might have but struggle to really think about. Here's this wonderful quote I stumbled across earlier today. Fairy tales do not give the child his first experience of bogey. What fairy tales give the child is his first clear idea of the possible defeat of bogey. The baby has known the dragon intimately ever since he had an imagination. What the fairy tale provides for him is a St. George to kill the dragon. Not that it's always about defeating it, but yes, sometimes just exploring the fears, wrapping your head around them a little bit better. Too readily, I think we can shelter our children from difficult things. Or sometimes, anyway. I don't want to paint a picture here. You know, sometimes people too readily don't shelter them enough. It's both ways. Once upon a time, Mr. Rogers had a children's show where he talked to children about death, the idea of pets or people dying, because, you know, children do experience that. They need somewhere to help them understand that experience, what it is they're feeling, to know it's okay. If death is just treated like this super scary thing all children need to be shielded from even the idea of, like it's so terrifying that not even stories are supposed to mention this unspeakable thing, then how is that going to make it any easier for them to reflect on when someone they know does actually die? So, you know, yeah, death, sadness, the idea that not all people out there are safe, even just the idea that sometimes people do bad things. I don't think children's stories are just packed with villains because conflict is good for drama. I think goodies and baddies is a solid idea to help a child first start to grapple with some of life's cruelty, darkness and also its light. We know there's more nuance to the world than just goodies and baddies, but it's a solid start point, I think. What does all of this mean though? Sometimes it's good to let your kids be scared. Yes, I think, kind of. Let me make one last point to try and clarify all this. So firstly, I want to stress this video is not some bitter man ranting that children nowadays are too soft, because you know, they're not, I don't think. Children are as varied as children have ever been, you know. Weird how you can meet people who, without any awareness of their contradictions, will argue both that children are too soft and that violence in video games is brutalising children. I also think it's good that old stories like Krampus, for example, are less prevalent nowadays, scaring the hell out of little kids with the idea that a demonic figure will come every winter to punish or possibly kidnap or eat children who behave badly. That kind can't be pleasant as a kid. Not to reduce an entire folklore down just to its negative characteristics there, because I don't want to do that, but partly scaring children into obedience. At least with films they can more clearly tell it's not actually real, especially if it's animated. If fear, then if exploring difficult feelings can be massively positive, but horror can also be traumatizing, then I think the main things to remember are this. 1, exactly what age your child is. What a 5-year-old can manage is obviously very different to what an 11-year-old can. Generally, there are age ratings for a reason, as well as sites designed to give some idea on exactly how scary different films are, although I do think those sites can be a bit confusing and subjective, so ideally point to be aware of what you're showing your child before you show them. Although we don't always have time to watch everything in advance, who the hell does? Nonetheless, there's probably still no doubt a wealth of good films you grew up with as a kid, ones you're acutely aware of just how appropriate or inappropriate they might be. 3, I think this is the important one. Watch the films with your child. Don't leave them alone to watch it. Scary experiences are most manageable and most beneficial when we are with someone who can either provide reassurance and comfort or else just be a presence there. So yeah, be there to pause the film, provide comfort, crack jokes, drinks, talk to them about what's happening the way you just do when you watch a film with someone, you know? And 4, which is kind of related to 3, talk to them about the scary bits after or perhaps during the film. Talking through it might help them get the worrying bits out of their heads before they sleep. What was scary about it? What was good about it? What was the nicer sides to the film? How were the fears managed for the characters in the film? How was it resolved? Why it's different in real life? Whatever, you know? Sometimes kids will be very eager to discuss this, sometimes they might be very quiet and you can just sense something is bothering them, in which case I think it's doubly important to take the time to help them open up, or even just ramble on it about yourself and let them listen to you. Safe, manageable experiences of fear can be difficult, yes, but also very positive, provided they are kept safe and manageable. I'm going to leave this there, but I can talk about more of this stuff if anyone is interested. Otherwise, please comment whatever thoughts, even if you think I am an idiot. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe for other stuff, and support me on Patreon for all sorts of extra. I've been trying to do a bit more in there recently. Otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Janice McMahon, Luke Core, Treachu Kaber, Michael Gallagher, In Squares, Flying Spider, Samara Salsi, Joshua C. Follier and Chad Bramwell. Thank you.